In this video, we're going to highlight the first principle of factoring. Factor out common factors. So factoring is actually just the distribution law in reverse. So a review of the distribution law, the law of distribution. So if I have a multiplication of some number, we'll call it A, times a sum, here let's call that B plus C, the distributive law says that we're going to take A and multiply it by B, and we're going to take that same A and multiply it by C and add the results so that we get A times B plus A times C. So factoring is going in reverse. We have two terms added together, so we have a sum, and the key thing is those terms in the sum have a common factor. Both terms, it's A times something, A times B plus A times C, and the distributive property is to go in reverse and split that up into two parts. I've got a common factor of A times the remaining factors. Let's now look at some examples. We have some terms. We're going to think of them as a sum of two terms, and we're going to identify the greatest common factor so that we can factor it out. So let's start with this first problem. We have 6x squared times y minus 9x times y cubed, and one of the key things is let's think of this as a sum. So let's rewrite it. It's 6 times x squared times y, if I could write, plus negative 9 times x times y cubed. And let's make that look like a 2. What I'm going to do is I'm going to think of all of the factors of these values. So I have 2 times 3 gives me 6. X squared is x times y. We wouldn't normally write that out, but I'm just doing it to emphasize it. Plus, let's fix that, plus negative 9 is negative 3 times x times y cubed. The idea of common factors is to identify pairs that match. So I've got a 3 in each term. There's only one x and there's only one y. So my common factor will be 3xy. So normally we would go directly from the original formula to the common factor formula. So I have 3x. What do we have left? In the first equation I have a 2 and an x. So I have 2x. And in the second formula I have 3xy times, what do we have left here? I have a negative 3 and 2 y's were not accounted for. So we've got negative 3 y squared. And now this is in the form of what the distributive law would predict. I have a common factor times some other stuff, and factoring says let's factor out reverse distribution to 3xy. The first term was 2x and the second term was minus 3y squared. So a lot of this we can do in our head. I wanted to emphasize why we were doing the things we're doing in this first example, so that 6x squared y and 9xy cubed, we can see the common factors of the 6 and the 9 were the number 3. The common factor of x squared and x was 1x. The common factor of y and y cubed was just 1y. And when I take that out, the first term I have to multiply 3xy by 2x, and the second term I have to multiply 3xy by minus 3y squared. So let's do another example. This time, notice we've already got it in a factored form, 3x plus y is a common factor here, but don't miss that we still might have some other common factors. So 2 and 4 have common factors. So what I would do is I would have the 2 and the 4, the common factor is 2. I have 3x plus y was a common factor. And from that first term, I was left with x squared. And for my second term, I've taken the 3x plus y, I've taken 2, leaving another 2, so we have plus 2y. And that would be the factored version where we've pulled out some common factors.